I've got news for you, pal. What's normal? Does anyone even care? Limp all the way home? That's fraud that any of us can understand. And I cannot think of anything more disrespectful than just violating that law, thinking it doesn't apply to you. Beep! How much respect do you think he's going to show the rest of us? This whole moron confidence thing going on the right is just absolutely bananas.
Hard Rock Lunchbox.
Greetings and salutations, everybody, members of the Hard Rock Lunchbox, and of course, viewers of the Top 20. How is everybody today? It is getting a little bit better, August 29th, 2024. How is everybody doing? Hopefully everybody is doing okay. I know it's been unseasonably cool here in the Northeast, except for yesterday, where we had a heat advisory for the absolutely one day I had to travel out to New York City, which was less than optimal. Thank you very much for that, universe. At least it was okay. The van does have air conditioning, which is nice, although there is a slight problem with it, and I gotta get it looked at, but man, I just do not have the time to get it looked at, because whenever I accelerate, the air conditioning stops. So I don't know what that's all about. I don't like it. But my paramount problem with the van right now is that there is a faulty wheel or tire sensor on it. So as soon as I start driving, about 15 minutes in, it will tell me that one of my tires is low on air, which is not true. And then eventually I'll get a tire sensor fault, and then eventually it'll go away all entirely. Wouldn't really bother me so much, except the beep that comes with it when it turns on is so goddamn annoying and stressful. It's like a beep. You know, when you're driving and you hear that noise, that's like hearing a horn like from the side about to crash into you. So that's just what I've been dealing with. Not much of a problem anybody else needs to concern themselves with. It is Thursday. I'm expecting it to be a relatively quiet show at the end of the summer. People have summer plans. I imagine once we get into September and all the kids are back to school, things are going to be kind of back to normal here on the box. But honestly, what's normal? Does anyone even care? I don't know that I care. We'll take care of some light housekeeping here. The brand new episode of the Top 20 is out today. It's called The Flappy Band-Aid. I talked about how I pulled my calf muscle, my right calf muscle. I'm happy to announce that it's back to relative normal now. I'm certainly not going to be jogging anytime soon because I do not need to do that again, but I was able to walk just fine to a lot of my places. I kind of kept close and kind of kept local in case I needed to just turn around and hop home, because when I did pull it last time, I was about 2 miles away, which is not fun. To limp all the way home, uphill, both ways, that kind of thing. So not digging all that. Man. So that video is out. Also on the show, Inheriting My Chiropractor. I talk about the Health Minute, new local music submissions, blah, 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 blah. I have Sunday Morning listed as the interview this past week for Bacon Is My Podcast. I did not get a chance to listen to it. I am so far behind on pretty much any and all podcasts. Sorry, I'm just fixing my necklace here because it's irritating me. I am so far behind on any and all podcasts. It's really kind of quite pathetic. A lot of it is because I just really haven't been walking because of the calf injury, but I'm kind of back to that now, so hopefully that'll come back. In other news that's going on, Revel 9 news at least, I'm back in the studio tonight with our producer to do some more vocals. I'm not sure if we're going to work on the dual vocal for End Us All or start another song, either Run Through Me or It's Alright. I have to kind of make a decision probably before I go. Probably be a good idea, so I might just do that. Also in Revel 9 news, we have a Revel 9 show. I did create the event. I did not make a formal announcement, but the show is going to be October 4th. We're going to be back at Mr. Beery's in Bethpage. So anybody that wants to come check that out, I highly recommend doing it. We have all new episode and Pathmaker that have signed up for this show so far. I have one band I'm going to ask to open it. I was trying to ask another band, but it doesn't look like they're going to be ready in time, so probably not going to be able to do that, but maybe I will. Maybe they will. So I'll hold out a little bit longer, but it is getting close, so I kind of do have to submit the full band list, I think, this week. So Excuse me. So that's basically it for housekeeping. I did not actually have a lot to talk about today because I've really been super busy. I have a lot of personal stuff going on, and as much as I am comfortable talking about a lot of personal stuff on the show here, it is not stuff that I particularly care to bring out into the open, at least just yet. A lot of stuff that I go through sometimes is better shared in hindsight, kind of after the resolution, so I'm going to pause on any of that I would be talking about currently. So that's that. The one thing I do want to bring up, and I know that I've been skirting around some sort of political stuff or as much as possible, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One, I find very little value actually in discussing anything politically anymore. There was a time when you could have a decent political discourse in this country or in this audience. That time is over. So mainly because both sides are just so absolutely angry. The only people I can really have conversations with are the very few people I find that align themselves with the middle, and then we basically talk about what asshats both extremes are, and then we kind of get along just fine. The other reason, I mean, seriously, like anytime I post anything that has anything to do with anything political, like the sheer volume of stupid comments and informed and like just moronic and mean comments like that are just completely not necessary, especially from the Trump side. I mean, I really do see them from both sides, but from the Trump side specifically, like the kind of rhetoric that you hear. Like this whole moron confidence thing going on the right is just absolutely bananas. I mean, I saw something just as I was changing my profile picture or my cover picture for the show here today that I thought was pretty telling. It was some, faked up picture of Tim Walz, who's the Democratic vice presidential nominee, like in blackface, and people are just talking about like what a great guy he is, being completely sarcastic, and Snopes has basically proven this to be false because it is a false picture and all that other stuff. And of course the commentary underneath it was like, well, you can't trust Snopes anymore, they've been bought by the elite liberals. Like, I got news for you, man. Most of the elite in this country are not liberals. They are very rich billionaires. So I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but it actually went on to say, like, once Twitter was taken over by the liberals, like, I've got news for you, pal. Like, Twitter is now owned by Elon Musk, who is the furthest thing from a liberal there could possibly be. So really stop throwing liberals under the bus for your problem, right? So, like, let's just kind of knock that off and, like, try and at least get, like, common sense facts straight. I know that's a little bit difficult for a lot of people. Like, common sense seems to be out the window for a lot of people, especially when they get political. But, like, let's at least try. And I know the answer is going to be like, no, I'm entitled to my own facts. In fact, one of the responses is like, well, the left lies all the time, so I'm just going to let this ride. Like, that's not exactly the response you're looking for. Like, how about we kind of try and stay truthful? The fact that the right can't handle, and the left to a degree, though, can't handle when they're shown to be wrong is just bananas. Like, just, I don't know. So anyway, like, I find that the political discourse is just not worth it. But the other reason really is I've just kind of unplugged from as much politics as possible because it's physically not good for me. Like, psychologically, physiologically, the stuff going on in the political landscape is just not good for me at all. I do not like either party particularly much. I don't like what any of them are standing for these days. I will say I do lean more towards the Democratic Party because at least they are talking about things that they want to accomplish and not just whining and complaining, which is pretty much all I'm seeing out of the Trump campaign. However, all that being said, I do want to bring up what was going down in Arlington National Cemetery the other day and this sort of blow-up news story. The right is complaining that the left-wing media, of which is making a big story out of nothing. And the reality of it is it's not true. Like, when you source all this information from both sides, like, you're finding some commonality in the story. And again, Ground News is not a sponsor, but Ground News is really good at aggregating all this information from both left and right, and then you can kind of see what you're looking at from both sides. And the commonality of this is that former President Trump, while he was at Arlington doing a wreath ceremony, which is completely fine. He's a former president. He should. Like, in my opinion, he should. And so I find that to be fine. But what happened is the members of the Trump campaign were looking to to do something they really shouldn't have done. Now, by all accounts, former President Trump was invited to lay a wreath at the grave of a soldier by a Gold Star family, which is fine. They can request that, and honestly, I think it's pretty good, given Trump's sort of disdain for the military, that he would even agree to do it. I mean, obviously, his advisors probably told him this was a really good idea to sort of curb how he's looking, in regards to the military. So I mean, I do think it's. I think that all that so far is okay. A Gold Star family, so they lost a soldier, is buried. And they've asked former President Trump to lay a wreath at the grave. So far, we're all good. Here's the problem. Arlington National Cemetery is one of our most famous, if not the most famous cemetery in the United States. It's a military cemetery, primarily. And they have an area, and I did not know this until a week ago, they have an area called Area 60, which is where I don't know if it's just recent fallen soldiers, like within the past decade, or if it's always been fallen soldiers. But they have a rule. They have, and I'm going to get more into this rule in a minute. You're allowed to visit, of course, but they have this rule that you are not allowed to any electioneering or political campaigning at all with using any of Section 60 as a backdrop. Now, not only is it a rule, I said I'd come back to that, not only is that a rule at Arlington Cemetery, it happens to be a federal law. This is not like a discretionary thing. It doesn't matter who asked for it. It doesn't even matter who is approving it. There is a federal law that says you are not allowed to do any electioneering or any sort of political PR or photo ops or photography at all. It's Section 60 of Arlington National Cemetery. It's a federal law because the people that are laid to rest there are servicemen and women who sacrificed the ultimate sacrifice for our country. And at the very least, they deserve that amount of respect. I believe that wholeheartedly. I did not serve. I have friends that have served. I have family that have served. I believe incredibly so much that we very much serve our veterans that have served us. I believe that when they came back from like World War II and we had like the New Deal and the GI Bill, I think we were on the right track. But I think anybody that follows Veterans Affairs since would see that we woefully inadequately take care of our veterans. So anytime there is anything that basically goes against the protections and respect and what's due, honestly, our fallen veterans, I take that very seriously. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because there has been so much pushback from the Trump campaign and the right on this issue that is so misplaced and misguided that anybody listening to this show, I just want them to hear the simple facts without being whatever, like without being gaslit or fed nonsense. I mean, the political campaign manager even said that at Arlington National Cemetery, they basically had a run-in with a staff member who was going through like a mental moment. Like, I gotta tell you, I don't really care. Like, she wasn't, and that's, because they said they would release the video of it, and they haven't, so they don't, and they're not going to. Even if she was going through the absolute worst mental moment of her life, it doesn't matter. This is a federal law, and they violated it. And they violated it so bad that there's actually now TikTok videos on behalf of the Trump campaign showing headstones, at Trump in this Area 60 and showing headstones of these Gold Star families. That is a violation of federal law. End of story. Like, be perfectly honest, I think the campaign people that did it should be arrested. They broke a federal law. It's really that simple. And what's more complex about that particular issue is that it highlights just how much former President Trump and his campaign don't care. They don't care about federal laws. They think none of it applies to them. Or they pick and choose the laws that they think are important to them or that matter. But they don't really care because they violated this law and they don't care. But they also clearly do not care or respect the military people that they claim to care for and respect, because the reason you're not allowed to do it is all about respect for our fallen servicemen and women. And they did not care. And even afterwards, after all this started to blow up, they have still released that video and videos of President Trump in Area 60 of Arlington in clear violation of this federal law and in clear and, obvious disrespect to those other soldiers. In fact, the grave where he laid the wreath was right next to another grave whose family has already complained about this because it is what they are due from our federal government. It is a federal law. They have been promised this decency and respect, and former President Trump and his campaign just didn't care and did exactly what they wanted in defiance of this law and in defiance of all respect for the other soldiers that are there. Personally, I find this absolutely disgusting. I would find it disgusting no matter who did it. It's a very simple thing to be told that you're not allowed to do this and there's a federal law saying that, and you going, oh well, I guess we can't do that. People on the right, some people on the left, but people on the right have been having a real problem with all these rules and laws. You saw that with the Trump trial in New York City, like, oh, it was a bogus thing that he got convicted of, all this fraud and stuff like that. Like, no, it wasn't. It's actually black letter law, in terms of the Stormy Daniels thing, but also the other thing that Letitia James brought, like where he had committed fraud, like he was inflating the value of his buildings to get money from banks and then deflating it, the value of these buildings to pay less taxes. That's fraud. Like, honestly, that's fraud that any of us can understand. And it's funny, too, because, like, I don't even know that I wouldn't do that personally, just to try and save like $1 million in taxes. But like, like when you're driving like 70 miles an hour on the parkway and you're just like, it's fine. It's really not. It really isn't. And the simple fact that if you get caught doing 70 miles an hour on the parkway, for those of you not in New York, the state speed limit here is 55. Although I think upstate you can drive a little faster. But on Long Island, it's 55. So if you're doing 70 miles an hour, which honestly I do from time to time, especially if it's the flow of traffic, like that ever happens. But like when it does, like I can do that. But, like, if I get pulled over, I'm not going to tell the officers, like, well, it doesn't really matter. Because the officer should tell me, like, no, it's the state law, and you just violated it by 15 miles an hour. The frank and obnoxious disavowalment of, like, this being a law that applies to you is just bananas. And it's the same thing, like, I see all the time, like, on the right, like, they're just making up these their assessment of the rules and laws of this country. You see it with like tax stuff, like all these people that like file bankruptcy and like have tax shelters and tax havens. Like a lot of these people are literally violating the law and they're not paying their taxes. I mean, yeah, a lot of them find loopholes and that's fine, even though I feel like the tax system should be corrected. But if you are doing an honest, legit tax haven in the Caymans and it's following all the rules, well, it sucks, but that's kind of okay. But the ones that just simply lie and don't pay their taxes, like, that violates the law too. And people on the right are always like, yeah, it's not really a big deal. It's not that big a deal of a law. Like, what is the point of having laws and rules if you're not going to follow them or you're going to pick and choose them because you're entitled to? Like, I find it bananas that people in this country honestly still argue with stuff that's like in the Constitution, that's in like state constitutions, that just in your basic run-of-the-mill kind of laws of this country. Like, that's what we have. You can argue that we have too many laws, that's fine. But if we have them, you can't just say, like, that doesn't matter. And when it comes to something serious like our military and our veterans, it really does matter, and it certainly matters to people like me because it matters to veterans. And veterans groups are really upset about this because, like I said, this federal law exists to protect the decency and the privacy of our fallen servicemen and women. And I cannot think of anything more disrespectful than just violating that law thinking it doesn't apply to you, and then proceeding to keep violating that law by putting out all this video and all this. And these are like not just regular video. This is political targeted ad stuff with former President Trump. He's running for election. He's running to be president of the United States again. It's black letter law, and he violated it. He doesn't care, and his followers don't care. And I think that the rest of us, independents and others, should really look at that and be like, man, he really doesn't bother respecting the very simple thing of allowing privacy and decency for our fallen soldiers. And this is somebody who has a history of insulting the military and military veterans. You remember, like, how famous he called John McCain a loser? This is somebody that didn't serve. Donald Trump never served. And he's calling, like, John McCain a loser. He's calling other, the Republicans are attacking Tim Wald. He was in the National Guard, I think, for like 24 years and served. They don't care. They have no respect. They have no respect for our military. And if you think they do, you are mistaken. And that's why all of our generals and military leaders do not want Trump to be president again, because he shows zero respect for them. And if you can't respect the people that defend our right to exist, how much respect do you think he's going to show the rest of us? I have the answer for you. It's goose egg. And I think he's proven that over and over. But this is just the latest and most recent egregious example of that. So, my thoughts are worth what they're worth to you. Any Trump supporter seeing this is going to be arguing with me. Honestly, I don't care. If you're arguing with that, you have your own problems. And honestly, you're disrespecting the military and the troops. You should be ashamed. You should pick up a gun and go defend our rights overseas. And then we'll see how you feel about it when somebody like me disrespects you. Which, honestly, if you do that, I wouldn't. Because I'm a better person. It's time to get on to some music before my agita really kicks up. Because I'm tired of dealing with stupid people and their stupid moron ideas. And their moron confidence that thinks that they have a right to be shouting these things from the rooftop, even though they're completely wrong. I would much rather morons go back to being quiet, but I think that time is over, unfortunately. So I'll just pick and choose my battles. Feel like this was a good one. This is a pretty clear one, and honestly, you disgust me. But it's time to get on to some local music here on the Hard Rock Lunchbox, my favorite part of the show, personally. I'm grabbing a ska band for you to start things off. I got to see them not too long ago. They're called The Going Rate. You can see them around town, I'm sure, many times, lots of times. They're a super big band in terms of the number of people on it. Otherwise, I'd try and get them onto a show. But since we're playing smaller stages these days, it might be a little hard to fit, let's see, 7 of them on a stage, but I certainly can play them for you here. It's fun. The box.